What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 4 of 6ZEROS Live. I'm your host, Jay, and I'm joined by...
JP, how you guys doing?
I hope y'all doing amazing out there. We have an awesome show for you today. We're going to talk about some recent happenings in Black news, and then we got an interview with the one and only, the awesome Marcel Dixon, who is a Gullah native that's running against Jim Clyburn. So we have that coming up for you a little bit later. But let's get started with this week in Black news. All right, so what we hear a lot of conversation about is what is African American, what is Black American, what do these terms mean? Do they have some type of importance? And in this conversation, we've heard different like classifications come up, like ADOS, descendants of American slaves, and their answers to this question of what is African American. Does African American really address our lineage? So JP, what are your thoughts on that?
So the term African American is actually a very, very new term. It came around in around circa 1984, and essentially what it is, it's a new grafting term, and it's essentially needed for immigration purposes. Because remember, there are other Africans that can come here. I can only remember, and this an example that blew my mind. When I was in fourth grade, there was a kid who was born in South Africa. He was a white guy. He was Dutch, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm African American too." I was like, "What?" So I mean, and it all ties into the whole reparations claim. Like we want reparations for our separating and slavery, and it's like, okay, now this is an attempt to muddy the waters linguistically.
See, now I hear that, and I hear that argument a lot, and I don't necessarily agree with that because African American references a specific ethnicity, right? And a lot of times, someone would say, "Okay, we can't use African American because it could be muddy," but then they'll say, "Okay, we can use some other term, but that other term could be muddy too." Because like, what's a foundational Black American? Then some Caribbean person that was here 100 years ago could say, "Well, I was foundational."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What makes Stokely Carmichael not a foundational Black American? So I remember in kickboxing class one day, this Egyptian dude came in and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm Egyptian." I was like, "That's cool." He said, "So I'm the real African American." I said, "No, you're not." I said, "Don't ever say that again in your whole life." And he looked all shocked. I was like, "No, you're not African American." I said, "You're a descendant of Arabs in Egypt, from Egypt." And he was just so baffled, and he was shocked. But he was offended too. But we're in a kickboxing gym, and it can go down. So I'm 6'4", so he had to just own it. So I'm like, "You're not African American." So I understand what people are saying, but I feel like the people that try to shoehorn themselves into African American is disingenuous. Like Elon Musk is not African American. Well,
Yeah. And essentially, those people know that, but it's like the dominant society, like they like to play these little sleight of hand games, and it's like, oh yeah, oh I have suffered too. I'm Irish, or I'm descendant of Italian ancestry, and one of my family members was in jail in Louisiana when it all went down. Like, well, that was a different time. They were actually considered non-white at that time, so. And also, you had a whole nation state to back you up when it went down. So it wasn't like here where it's like, oh yeah, the African Union or the CARICOM is coming to save us. Nobody is coming to save us. We are literally on an island unto ourselves in this situation.
yeah, I feel like sometimes people get caught up in the nomenclature. I think they get caught up in the nomenclature because we know where we're at. We know where we're at in America, and the next step is a hard step, and it's an uncomfortable step because it's one of those steps where you can't go back. You can't just go back to putting your head in the sand and get back on the Xbox when we take that next step. So let's sit around and argue about classifications when no matter what classification you have, you're still Black at the end of the day. But I get it. That's why I like descendants of American slaves, because it's like it's precise. You can't shoehorn anybody into descendant of American slave. It's like you either are or you're not. There is no ambiguity. Do you want to give parting closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a situation right now where globally there's no room for a plebiscite to look. You're either with this or you're not. And especially here on a micro level, micro ethnically, we're having to define ourselves because there's so many groups coming in flooding the zones. So it's like, hey, we are right here. That is it.
Yeah, that was part of the failed strategy. It's like we were under this we had this ideology of just black is black and everybody sees the world the same way we do, and we screwed ourselves heavily with that. So this realignment, this boundary that we're setting and saying we're descendants of American slaves, I think it's important. Just one last point. I was reading I was on Twitter, and what's going on in Ukraine. They were they weren't allowing a lot of the Africans there to get on the trains to get away. And one of the guys that was reporting it, he said, this upsetted me so much. He said, I'm not upset at them. I'm upset at my African governments. This guy was Nigerian. He said, I'm not upset at them. I'm upset at the African governments that just left us here. And I'm like, yo, that's why we need that hard line in the sand, because some people are always going to give the dominant society a pass. No matter what, they could do anything to you. They're going to find some way to give them a pass. So drawing this hard line in the sand, especially when it's a B1 line, because we're really drawing a line at B1. What's the ideology you have? If you either have this ideology or you don't. And I think that's it's a super important distinction. It's not just, is your skin color brown, but do you think like a black person? Do you see life as a black person? Do you have pride in being a black person?
Correct.
All right, so that follows. My transition game was off right there. Yeah, so with this conversation about Black Americans putting a hard line in the sand and finally advocating for our own interests, dropping the "we are the world" conversation and saying we want what's ours. Part of that is making sure that we have people in the government that are talking to our needs and being specific about our needs. And one individual that is running for against Jim Clyburn is Mr. Greg Marcel Dixon, and he's running. He has a grassroots approach, and he's galvanizing a lot of individuals in South Carolina. So we're bringing him on right now. Everybody, put your hands together for Mr. Greg Marcel Dixon.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We're doing amazing.
Wonderful.
So just for the crowd, what do you like to go by, Greg or Marcel?
Marcel, please.
Okay, awesome, Marcel. All right, so as I framed it up, I was talking about this new era that we're in. For so long, I would say maybe post-civil rights movement, Black Americans have looked at everything like permanent friends. We always looked at politics as permanent friends. The Democrats are our friends. Let's always support our friends, and then let's hope our friends look out for us. And we've changed this ideology. It's slowly changing, and the new Black media has been very pivotal in this, in changing our mind state from permanent friends to permanent interest. And some of those interests that we've been making very clear are, we want tangible policies and benefits directed to Black Americans or descendants of American slaves. We don't want any more rising tide, lift all boats policies. We want protection against state and civilian tyranny. We want protection against police brutality, race-based discrimination, economic and environmental deprivation, and physical attacks. And then we want to be prepared for a history of that has caused us to constantly reset ourselves generation after generation. Okay, so that's where we're at in America as Black Americans. And I'm going to pass to JP to ask you the first question.
So, Mr. Dixon, how does your plan address the agenda put forth by descendants of American slaves?
The agenda is reparations. My slogan, as here on my shirt, because I'm wearing it today, is repair Black America to fix America. And the same way, grammatically, if you have to read that sentence, you have to get through repair Black America to fix America. That's the way it's going to happen legislatively. The reason this very wealthy, extremely powerful nation of ours still has developing world issues, if that's what you want to call it, from gun violence to poverty to malnutrition to threats of extremism, is because it refuses to repair Black America. The same way the Civil War was a very bloody, brutal war, we could have just emancipated our ancestors. That is a microcosm of what is happening now. History is repeating itself. This country can easily fix probably 98% of the social issues that plague us by repairing Black America. And until they do so, we won't have peace. My platform focuses solely on making this nation do that. I was raised that if you break something, you fix it. The American government inflicted a wound upon us from chattel slavery and the unpaid wages from that, Jim Crow, redlining, lynch mob, racial massacres, the FHA destroying our communities, and the list goes on and on. Importation of drugs, mass incarceration. If you don't heal a wound, it becomes infected and it becomes more dangerous. Until they heal the wound that they inflicted upon us, this infection is going to spread throughout this entire nation and destroy us. So I'm trying to get reparations for us. Freedmen is what I call descendants of American slaves, because that's our congressional term. Freedmen is for us, but it's really for the whole nation.
That's great. And so I got to ask you, you price it at $17 trillion. Does that account for interest?
Actually, no. The nation, America, has lost at least $17 trillion because of anti-Black racism. The GDP of America, as we speak, is $19.2 trillion. This is about the richest we've been. We keep getting wealthier, technically. So if America had done reparations a long time ago, this country would be twice as rich. So think of how great this country is in the areas of medicine, science, telecommunications, infrastructure. Everyone wants to come here, you know. Imagine what we would have been had this country done reparations in 1865. But because they haven't, we are actually a poor nation. We would have been twice as rich. But that's what it's cost America. Black Americans, according to studies by economists who wrote a book called The Black Tax, we have lost $17 trillion in wealth. So whatever price I come up with, it's going to be $70 trillion at least. I haven't committed to a number yet. But if a person was to just take 4 million people, 40 hours a week, at just $15 an hour, and you do that from 1776 to 1865, you are already at $1.5 million. I don't teach math for a reason. I know it's somewhere in that area. So the number for which I am going to push for, I have yet to decide, but you can believe it's going to be at least over 1.5 million or more. And that's just for the unpaid wages.
Yeah, now some individuals, you already know this narrative is going to come across. They're going to say, how are we going to pay for this? You know, and you're hitting that point. We're going to get a return on investment by actually pushing forth reparations. But how do you feel like the government should pay for it? Should it do monthly payments to spread this out over time, or should it be a one-time lump sum? How should these reparations be paid out?
So that's really a two-part question. One, people want to learn about me real fast. I ain't Elizabeth Warren. I ain't Bernie Sanders. You can't scare me with how you gonna pay for a question. That doesn't scare me. Okay? That don't scare me at all. That scares a lot of these other so-called progressives, which you're not a progressive if you're not for reparation for freedom. But the American government has been running a scam on Americans for a long time. And I have to give them credit. They've done it very well. They have us thinking that taxes are what keeps the American economy going. That's a goddamn lie, and it's a myth. Taxes are what the state government needs to run. The federal government does not need taxes at all because America is what we call a monetary sovereign. A monetary sovereign means a nation can create their own money. State governments cannot create their own currency. The federal government can. So ask yourself, what happens first? Will people work and create money, or is money there and people work to get it? We already know it's the latter. The federal government has us thinking that they need to raise taxes, and one reason why they can't do reparations is they can't afford it. That's a damn lie. Ask yourself these questions. These are rhetorical. Who funds the military? From where do they get the money to fund the military? Where did we get the $20 billion a month we were spending on wars in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2002 to 2021? Where is that money coming from? Where did the money come from to finance the research into these vaccines and then the distribution? But where did the money come from to give out these stimulus checks, to expand and increase unemployment, to do the PPP loans that really were grants if a business qualified? Where did that money come from? Did any of us see a tax increase? No. As a matter of fact, when the Trump administration was doing these things, Donald Trump had actually done historic tax cuts. So the truth of the matter is, you can look up Ben Bernanke, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve in 2012, and he said to Paul Ryan, former Congressman Paul Ryan, that the American government can never run out of money. It's impossible. He's not the only person that has said that. Everyone knows that, because all that has to happen for America to come up with a budget is the Federal Reserve has to approve the government for a credit expansion, which it does all the time, and the American government can create whatever budget it wants. The only thing that really is a limit on what we can spend is inflation. So that goes to your second part of the question. That's why I know some people will not agree with me on this. I know people will be like, I want my money and I want it now, but it has to be paid monthly. Because if we just do an infusion of, there's like 50, we know the census undercounts us, right? So I'm not going to entertain that. So the census, I'm putting their number out. It's more than 50 million of us. There's probably around 70 million of us. So of that 70 million, the majority are freedmen, descendants of American slaves. So 60 million of us. 60 million people, $2 million each. What we will do, the economy will actually crash, not because we don't deserve it, but because the scarcity of resources. There are only so many cars to buy. There's only so many materials available any given year to build homes. There's only so much food in the grocery stores. But what we would essentially be doing is fighting over who's going to get the last turkey wing on the grocery store shelf. So the money has to be distributed monthly. So what I plan to do is have it in the form of bonds, where the American government will take on the debt that they owe us, and they will pay us interest on that 1.5 to 2 million at least. And that will be like at least $100,000 a year. And like I said, that's just the direct payment aspect. That's not including other policies I'm going to do, such as justice for land theft, all the land we've lost and things like that. So in order to be knowledgeable of inflation, that's how reparations will be paid out.
Nice, JP. On you.
Oh man, what do you think about the classifications, descendants of American slavery, American descendants of slaves? Do you think there is a benefit to shifting of the nomenclatures?
Oh, definitely. We have to politically abandon the term black. Now, I'm Gullah Geechee. We are the blackest Americans of all Black Americans. We usually have only a 3 to 4% European admixture. And I love that for us. I love it. I mean, and that's true with me. I've done Ancestry and I've done 23andMe. And I know those things are controversial. But when I did them, I was only 3% European. And I was like, that's way too damn much. And I was happy to be like almost 100% Black. I'm like, so this is what like a fully, quote unquote, African descendant person looks like me.
Yeah. But, Marcel, I was 23%. I always keep my ancestry DNA test on me in case I get pulled over.
Well, use it as a shield to see if it's bulletproof, because the officers don't care about that. Ask some of our mixed brothers and sisters. All they need to see is the Negro in you, and that's it. But check this out. I don't care what we call ourselves socially. African American, Black American, Negro, colored, freedmen. Some people are coming out with new terms as we speak. ADOS, Foundational Black American. There's even a new term going around, Soul American or Sola, whatever. But congressionally speaking, we are called freedmen. That comes from the 1860s when Congress passed two acts, the Freedmen Bureau Acts. Act 1 and Act 2, and freemen were defined as people and their descendants who were emancipated from slavery from the American government. So politically, we cannot get legislation done and say it's for Black people, because they will find ways to constitutionally hold it up in the Supreme Court for decades. But we can, and American government does all the time, legislation for people of a certain lineage or experience. So if we're in a community and our water was poisoned and we sue the federal government for it, let's look at what our brothers and sisters did in North Carolina, the Pickford Act, where farmers in North Carolina sued the federal government for anti-Black discrimination against Black American freedmen farmers. The American government did a settlement with those people who went through that experience. They didn't say all Black people in the world, all Black people in America, just those who went through this experience. Likewise, as freedmen, we are the ones who went through chattel slavery. We are the ones who saw our Wall Streets with an S, because it was more than just the one Oklahoma get burned to the ground. We are the ones who saw our children being fed to alligators, hung from trees. We are the ones that had our communities flooded with drugs, that there's very strong proof that the CIA was behind it. And guess what? Absolutely. I'm going to go with that they did it. We are the ones that were victims of mass incarceration, the FHA destruction of our communities, and Jim Crow and redlining, poor schools and lead poisoning, you name it. That is our lineage. So therefore, we were the ones that were afflicted. We are the ones that should get the compensation. The moment we say Black, it allows people from all over to jump into our claim for experience of which they did not go through. This is our experience, our descendants.
Also, part of the reparations package, do we deserve a protected class status?
That's a part of my platform. Yes, we definitely do. Freedmen technically is a protected status. That's why when Reconstruction happened, the military was there, and we had the Freedmen's Bureau, a whole department of the government, which, by the way, this current guy, Mr. Biden, he can literally write an executive order, and in 5 minutes, he could bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, whose job it was in the 1800s to make sure that freedmen, the Black Americans, the descendants of American slaves, were fed. We had land, we had housing, we were protected, and we were treated fairly. He can easily bring that back. And they had the military in the 1860s and the 1870s to protect us. We got more protection in the 1860s and in the 1870s than we do now in the 21st century. So we definitely need to get that protected class status back. That way, when policies are put forth for freedmen, it's only for us. It cannot be contested. We cannot be deprived of it.
I have a question regarding those classifications. How do we have a healthy balance where we understand that we need to be more specific about who we are and this demographic that has been attacked for centuries? How do we have that dialogue without being distracted? Because I personally feel like there's some distraction in there, and now everybody's fighting over terms and forgetting that it's about us getting what we deserve and what's ours. How do you think we can have that debate without getting distracted or sidetracked?
So, I used to have an aunt, my great-grand aunt, Aunt Nancy, and I used to love feeding the chickens. I used to be fascinated by it. She would come out and just throw corn, and it's like the corn would get on an air current and then land right there, and the chickens would all come around and eat. So she used to let us do it every now and then. And I was her great grandnephew because she was my great grandfather's sister. And I would do it, and I never can get it. The corn would go everywhere, and the chicken and hens would go everywhere, and it would be chaotic. They would cackle and all that stuff like that. And that's how we are as Black Americans sometimes. We can't stay focused to save our goddamn lives. And I mean that literally. So now they're fighting over what to call ourselves. The work already been done. It's freedmen. We have to understand what we call ourselves legislatively, that's freedmen. We can call ourselves anything we want socially. We got to understand Twitter is not going to go into legislation. It shouldn't. Now, the thing is, those chickens were scattered all over the place. But what was the most important thing that they were trying to get was the grain, the kernels of corn. Likewise, we got to stay focused. We're getting reparations. This is the third phase of a long, long battle, war of that we're going to win. Abolition, civil rights legislation, and now reparations. And we got to stay focused. Most of our people, I hate to say it, we're not. We tend to think like back then, every Black person was on cold and marching the streets. If you do the research, that's not what was going on. It's always been a significant percentage of us that have stayed on cold and stayed the course. And that's the side I want to be on.
Absolutely. So with that protected class status, what is your stance on qualified immunity? How does it address that to make sure that we have, so that we can make sure that individuals that come in our community and attack us, mainly the police, don't have these protections that shield them?
So qualified immunity will allow a police officer who violates a person's constitutional rights to be sued personally. And that's great. I support that. I completely support that. To me, that's minimum. That's like basic. If you shoot and hurt or God forbid kill someone I love, and we have been protecting them, and you're supposed to see, you're the police officer, you're supposed to uphold the law. So if you're breaking the law, us as a society, we're heading in a bad place when the people are supposed to uphold the law breaking it. I want to do more than just sue you. I want your ass in prison. So I plan to put forth, and this is on my platform, to start a proposal to amend the Constitution. There's a constitutional amendment on police power where it says they cannot deprive a person of their rights to life, liberty, and I don't know the exact verbiage. Reckless, it says knowingly. And that's the word that gets a lot of police officers off, because a lot of them can easily play dumb and say, I didn't know I was depriving them of their life, liberty, and justice. But when you change knowingly to recklessly says, even if you didn't know, you should have. The same way we have crime for reckless driving, meaning you probably didn't mean to do it, but you should have known better because you are a licensed driver and you were trusted with certain responsibilities. As an officer who's trained, you should have known better and you need to be held accountable. I also think there needs to be an overhaul of the judicial system. I plan to do a commission where I'm going to get on code, not the coons. We already got coons out here. On code freemen whose backgrounds show they're for us in these judicial positions, local judges, state judges, federal judges, because you saw what just happened with that murderous bigoted scum, whatever her name is. I won't even say her name, in Minneapolis, got 2 years by one of our Asian allies, because, you know, that's supposed to be our people of color allies. Well, you see how that works out for us, right? We have no allies. We got to get judges on the bench who aren't going to allow stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I have a follow-up question to that. So a lot of things that are being said right now are about existing law or existing amendments that are already passed and they're not respected. How do we get them to respect that? If they don't respect us as a people, how are we going to come to them and say, okay, I'm a freedman, you need to respect my rights? Are we relying on the grassroots power to put the government in a position where they need to move? So, or is it that we're going to the government and we expect them to respect us now that we've changed the classification, or we're coming to them in a legally more sound manner?
Let me be very honest about something. I'm a person who feels that there's a civil, peaceful way to get things done. That's the way we should pursue. But I'm never going to be nonviolent. Never. I'm never going to say, don't kill, don't retaliate, don't go after them. No. My attitude is, if that's what it comes to for us, then I'm for it. Now, I'm for
Well,
it.
that
Everybody
answers
else
it.
now, okay, but there's another option, though. There is another option. There is a legal option. One thing we have not done as free men, this is our fault. We have not leveraged our political power. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, what's the guy named Kevin? The other guy named I forgot his name. The minority House leader. What?
McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. Yes. All four of them don't give a damn about us. We know that, right? They don't give a damn about us. They don't even care about white people. That's the funny part. They don't even really care about white Americans. Only white Americans, especially the poor ones who get so get so riled up about them. They don't care about you, but they care about power. What is it that we keep giving the Democrats and we get nothing in return from it? Power. The Democrats know they will not be a viable party in our modern times without the black vote. They would not have had the House, the Senate, and the presidency without us. They want to not have to have us. That's why they keep trying to give illegals the right to vote. But they know they need us. We have the power, but we have not used it. And because we have not demanded anything from us, they don't give anything to us. We should expect them to be good leaders and do right by their constituents, but they're awful people who only care about power. We have to start demanding legislation for our vote. When we get the people to represent us to respect us, then it will trickle down. Because with that analogy, grassroots, what does grass need to grow? It needs water, and water is provided from the clouds. Likewise, where the grass, the government is supposed to provide the water from us. What we've been doing is growing, and they've been eating us, and we haven't been getting replenished by them. That has to stop. So that's the answer right there. We leverage our vote. You don't do it, there's going to be a politician who wants power in a Democratic-leaning area or a Democratic area who say, you know what, I've never been able to win. This area is Democratic, but now that the black people are mad, I might say, you know what, black people, I'm going to deal with this issue. Then we say, if that person's going to do it, I don't care if they're Republican, Libertarian, whatever, we going to vote for them and watch things start to change.
But Marcel, doesn't that require us to step away from the table? Because if we keep going to the table and we're always offering our vote because we feel like we have to vote for someone, then they don't feel like they have to change their behavior. So do you think that that option of stepping away from the negotiation table is what's needed for us to have that politician to see the opportunity and say, okay, black people have removed themselves from this process. I can win if I give that demographic what they need?
In that regard, I think the opposite. I like history really can inform our present. We can learn from history not to repeat certain things, but we could also see what we may not be doing now that we didn't that worked. When our ancestors were first emancipated, they earned their emancipation. They fought for their emancipation. Right. The first thing they did was got elected. They got elected at the state level, and then within a short period of time, they were at the federal level. South Carolina, the Gullah Geechee people, we sent some of the first people, black people, to the federal government to represent us. Joseph Rainey, the first black man to serve in U.S. Congress, Robert Smalls, both Gullah Geechee. They didn't wait or rely on the nice white Republicans who were supposedly for us to do policies for them. They said, hell with y'all. They ran, and they got elected by their people, and they went to Congress to do the policies they saw their people need. What I have seen happen with us, we have convinced ourselves that we have to, I don't know, I guess, pull a sword out of a rock and be anointed to run for office. Look, if our ancestors were doing it in the 1860s, illiterate, penniless, and dealing with white, murderous, anti-black, full of scum, piss-stained, murderous mobs, and they still ran for office in the 1860s and 70s. Why is not more of us saying, you know what, hell with it. I may not have all the money. I may not even have the training. I may not even have the best brand. I may not even be the nicest person, but I'm going to run for office just for the hell of it. We lose every fight that we don't even get up to try to fight. I am running in part because I want to show people that instead of us trying to see what we can do to get policies from these people, no, let us see what we can do to replace these people.
That's
Hey,
heavy.
Marcel would have typical black media. Their eyes would be bucking.
I know. Yes, they would. Commercial break.
That's heavy.
That's why they
That's
don't reach out
heavy.
to me. That's why they ignore me. They ignore me all the time because they know they're gonna be going through a commercial break every other word I say.
Yeah, they go like,
Right.
Marcel, you're gonna get me in trouble with my boss, man. Chill out.
No, with that said, do you think the Ketanji Brown appointment has been symbolic?
It is symbolic. And that's one thing I need my people to stop falling for. We get symbolism. And for those who don't know, symbolism, when they just show you things that make you feel good for a minute, get you emotionally riled up. And that's all we get. We get, Barack Obama singing at a church Amazing Grace, which is a slave and former enslaver song, by the way. We get Nancy Pelosi wearing kente cloth, taking a knee for 9 minutes. We get a hip-hop month. And, we get James Clyburn serving fish dinners and doing the Cupid Shuffle. Meanwhile, Hispanics are getting citizenship for illegals. They're getting Hollywood to give them contracts where at least 5 to 15% of their cast will be Hispanic people. We know it ain't going to be the Afro-Latinos. We know they only want to go for the whitest thing they can find. Only time they want to be black, talk about the Hispanics. And yeah, I'm calling you out, Latino community. Y'all need to be called out. Y'all another community I'll be calling out a lot more lately. Only time you want to be black is when black Americans, freemen, have fought for something. And then when you see something for us, like that farm, all money for farmers, then you want to bring out your black abuelita, who you've been hiding in a photo album collecting dust that you didn't want anybody to see. Other than that, you want to classify yourself as white. So Asian got a hate mail. The only thing we get is symbolism. Now, I'm not going to say Supreme Court is not important. But I need my people to understand, less than 1% of Supreme Court will hear less than 1% of all cases. They decline most of them. Understand that. What we need legislation. We have lost 14 million acres of property since 1969. 80% of our land has been lost from 1969. It's been stolen through heirs property, which is where someone who owns the land dies. Therefore, no one in their family owns the land. They all have to share it, and you can't do a lot with it. The FHA discriminating against us by giving grants to white farmers, discriminating against black farmers, lynch mobs, all of that contributed to black land laws. Black men having the shortest lives. Our kids, like here in my community, Charleston, South Carolina, which is said to have the country's most toxic water. Denmark, South Carolina doesn't have clean water. The fact that black Americans make 15 to 20% of the population to make up over 50% of the homeless. Those things are not going to be solved by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court does not write legislation. That's what a congressman or a congresswoman is supposed to do. Where the Supreme Court comes in is when I write my reparations bill for freedmen. If someone tries to challenge it, then we're going to need a Miss Ketanji Brown to side with us and say, I rule in favor of that. They are within their rights. Now, I don't know a lot about Miss Ketanji Brown, but I did read one article, not that one about her not siding with the black people that wanted to sue Lockheed Martin. I don't know enough about that. The one I read that really worries me is when she ruled against expedited deportation. Because if she thinks she's going to sit her ass on that bench and kick these illegals in here, she gonna get her ass up and get her out of there. That's all I gotta say.
Absolutely, and
I'm not closing immigration.
Good, absolutely, same here. So to closing thoughts, tell in one sentence or however many you need, tell descendants of American slaves why they should vote for you.
Because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., before he was killed, said we were coming to get our check. And before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you had Callie House, who was formerly enslaved. And she went before the United States of America. And there were other people who went before the United Nations. So freemen, we can get our check. This is not a new thing. Here in South Carolina, the Gullah Geechee, When General Sherman met with us, he said, what can we do to repair the wrongs done to Negro? We said to him, give us our land. That's where 40 acres of mule come from. And we told him, get the hell on. This is not a new thing. This is something our ancestors has always wanted for us, but they had to get through abolition first. They had to get through rescinding anti-black laws like Jim Crow via civil rights legislation. They cleared the way for us to now have this fight. Any of you out there talk about it's not going to happen or the white man ain't going to give it to us. They ain't never gave us nothing. We've always had to fight for everything we've had. So any of you out there saying it's not going to happen, you might as well pull down your pants and piss on our ancestors' graves. You are disrespecting the people from whom we come. And you need to buy one of those shirts saying, I am not my ancestors, because you're sure hell not. Our ancestors had backbone. And if you are saying it's not going to happen, you don't have any. And you probably have a white girlfriend or a white boyfriend, and you're probably the same type of black people that go around saying, good hair, good hair. Now, that's it.
Yeah. Hold on, I gotta give you a bomb drop on that one. Hey, Marcel, I just have to say it's a pleasure. You joining 6ZEROS live. I love your energy. This is the energy we all need. I gotta just say this. Everyone, don't look at Marcel and say, okay, I like his energy. I like how he's uncompromising. You need to be that. We all need to be like this brother. It needs to be 1 million, 2 million, 3 million Marcels. Not one Marcel, 1 million of them. If you look in the mirror and you don't have this brother's conviction, you don't have this brother's tenacity, you need to figure out how you get it. All right. Probably get off the NBA 2K and figure out our situation and get involved. All right. And with that, I want to thank you, Marcel. You've been an excellent guest, man.
Thank you.
We're gonna support you. Let us know whatever you need from us. All right.
Right. And I want to say to people, if you want to know more about me, you can go to marcelforcongress.com. That's my website. Or you can even text me. I don't text back right away, but I will. 843-940-8983. Thank y'all for having me.
All right. Can you give us that number one more time?
843-940-8983 and website marcelforcongress.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcel. Absolutely. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
You too.
Man.
Yeah.
My headphones are on fire.
What did you think, JP?
My headphones are on fire. He was just dropping them. I'm like, man, I can't. Holy shit.
Yeah, that energy. I love that energy. I love seeing brothers with that energy. And the thing is, in society today, people say that's militant, but it's not really militant. That's the base level every black man and every black woman should be at. You should be uncompromising about your interests. Like nothing he said was controversial. It was We've been harmed, fix it. But people will say he's radical or militant. That's how racist this society is. This society is so racist against black people that just saying, hey, man, do right by me. They're like, oh, you're a militant. Like, damn, I'm militant just for getting what's mine?
Exactly. You can't get a fair shake.
Yeah, it can never get a fair shake. And I think he has some good points about the classifications. I like how he created the separation. He said, okay, there's the social classification, and that could be whatever. And then he said, okay, but congressionally, freedmen. I think that's a cool compromise, basically culturally. It's like, okay, we could have whatever names. We could be the elephant men of Zamunda if we want to. But when it comes to reparations, we have this term freedmen. There's some legacy to that term that will help us in our claims.
Yeah, and he cited everything.
You said what? I'm sorry?
I said, yeah, and he cited everything.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was trying to hear what you said. I'm like, he cited everything? Yeah, he cited everything. So check out those bills he was talking about. There is historical precedence for the name, and also research the Freedmen's Bureau, and just research how vile these people were and how they screwed us over at every step. And to close out, we're going to go with the plug. Do-do-do-do-do.
Dun, dun,
The plug.
dun.
So who do you have for us today, JP?
This week's plug is Troy Cherry of Columbus, Ohio. Troy is the owner of Overstand, which is OVR USA, which is a small boutique style custom clothing line where Troy takes his ingenuity in his mind and puts it onto the clothes. He alters whatever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, and he has a pop-up show to sell these clothes off. I think it's on a monthly basis, I believe. He just comes to a city, pulls up, and lets some of his closest friends know, hey, I'll be selling these clothes. You should come up. And he was also a marketing contributor to Leafy Products. Now, Leafy is an eco-friendly alternative of toilet paper and what's the other one? Paper towels. And they're both made with bamboo. So if you go to getleafyproducts.com, you can check that out. I've actually gotten a couple of things from Overstand USA. He got this one shirt that I bought, and it's got the paid in full scenario where they're all eating Chinese food superimposed onto the Last Supper, and it says everybody eats. That's fly. And then he got me it's like it's a Powernomics. It's got, instead of $100 bill or whatever, it's got Powernomics on the shirt, and then it's got Dr. Claude Anderson in the place of Benjamin Franklin.
That's awesome. That's when you talking about Leafy Products, I was thinking it was a weed dispensary. I'm like, we're gonna bring up a weed dispensary right after a congressional candidate. And to close out, everyone, I want to go over 6zeros.net. Okay, 6zeros.net is a place for the B1 to talk about all subject matter important to us. Okay, we have a giveaway going on right now. The February giveaway, 222 equals 6. Well, we'll be giving away 2 awesome prizes. We'll be giving away a We Buy Black mystery gift box and the autobiography of Malcolm X. And before I close out, I just want to explain something, because a lot of people get confused about 6 zeros. What is 6 zeros? I don't know how to use it. And I think some of y'all are like 60 years old. That's why it's like getting you baffled. But it's simple, okay? So when you go into 6 zeros, there's different categories. There's the cookout, there's lovers and friends. So you have these different categories. And when you go into it, there's different topics. And then you can either create a topic by clicking this pencil at the bottom right, or you can go into a topic and post. So we've been talking about how Denzel's name is actually pronounced Denzel. So you can go in here and you can respond and you can comment. This is called a forum, okay? It's a forum. It's not social media. It's a little bit more involved. You don't just do mind blurts. Oh, I went to the store. Cool. It's going to take some time. You create a topic. You respond to the topics, okay? It's not about the people. It's about the topics and the commentary. So it's a little bit harder for some of y'all. You know, it's going to take some time. You have to take some time when you develop a thread. It's just not you go on your timeline and you just say whatever dumb stuff coming to your brain. Oh, I like donuts. Like, they'll be coming to the site. They be like, I'm like, dude, this ain't a diary, bro. They be like, I had a hard day, Black Power. Like, okay.
Oh my
Put that in your
goodness.
diary, bro. Go on your Facebook and do that and see you get 2 likes. But no.
Did he say his name was pronounced Denzel?
Yeah. He said his name is Denzel. Hey, when he says Denzel, that sounds super European. It sounds like it's like some Celtic name. Yeah, his name's Denzel. It's not Denzel. But you know, when black people see that, we see Denzel. Like, he probably was called Denzel his whole life, so he just went with it. But he's Denzel. That's Denzel Washington.
Duly noted.
Yeah, that Zell, I would think it would need 2 L's at the end to really be Denzel. So I always had a beef with his name. I'm like, that doesn't say L. That's Denzel. Denzel sounds about right. So what's your closing thoughts, JP? What's going on over there?
Man, after this interview, I'm just on a whole nother level right now. my headphones are still on fire, and I want to go find other candidates that are on the same wavelength as Marcel.
Yeah, I love that, and also to everybody, and this goes for all of us. If we can't find another Marcel, it's probably the Marcel was you. Don't never forget that we have the power. Everybody that you read about in history, it's just a person. Malcolm X was just a dude. He was a dude. He was a hustler. He went to jail. He was reading up and stuff like that. Got very educated. He came out and was this powerhouse. Martin Luther King, just a dude. Harriet Tubman, just a woman. They're just people that said enough is a freaking enough. And some of y'all, enough ain't enough. You just want to put your head in the sand, play NBA 2K. But there's some of you that are listening to this and you're like, damn, enough is enough. If that's resonating with you, then I'm talking to you. And it's your time to do something, man. You could be the next Marcel. You could be the next anything you want to be. It's time to do. Don't think about it like Constance said last week. Stop, get out the planning phase, get in the execution phase. Start executing, and I'm telling you, the Black community is galvanizing, and we will have your back. I got a little delay, a latency on them sound effects. Give me a couple weeks. I'm gonna have them joints. I'm gonna give myself a sad trombone because I was a little delayed on that bomb drop. I should have bomb dropped myself right there. Bam. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this episode of 6 Zeros Live.